Welcome. Welcome to Spotlight on Sherburne Business. This program is sponsored by the Sherburne Business Association in cooperation with Dover-Sherburne Cable Television. Today the spotlight is on Keisha Gifford Lifton, who is an established architect here in Sherburne. She is her own boss. She is the owner, designer, project manager, and creator of Finespaces Architecture, LLC. Keisha was born and raised in upstate New York, graduated with honors from Syracuse University School of Architecture, and studied under Dean Werner Seligman, who was a highly accomplished architect. I must add that this program is always highly ranked among U.S. undergraduate architectural schools and design schools. When she graduated, actually while she was at Syracuse, she worked for QPK, which is an architectural firm in Syracuse, and was then hired on graduation by Benjamin Thompson Associates in Cambridge. BTA is a well-known firm that designed many award-winning projects, including Quincy Market and South Street Seaport in New York. She has been practicing architecture as a principal since 1992. Her work has been featured in many magazines, including Boston Globe's Your Home magazine, Design New England, and Arts and Crafts Home magazine. In 2009, she was named Woman of the Year in Architecture and Construction. She is certified by the National Council of Architectural Boards and is a registered architect here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Welcome, Keisha, and thanks for sharing your business with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
When did you first realize that you had an interest in architecture? How did you get into this field?
Well, I was always interested in space and building things. Even when I was a little kid, I used to build things out of boxes, and I was constantly rearranging the furniture in my bedroom. So I knew that making spaces and working with spaces and buildings was something that I needed to do as an adult.
So this has been a passion developed from childhood.
Yes.
If someone were to ask you what style of architecture you practice, what would you say?
Well, I would say that it's really not about the style, because any type of architecture that you build can be articulated in many different ways. You can build a house that is a certain shape, and you can articulate that shape as a modern space or as a traditional space. So I would really instead think of myself as a contextualist, which is someone who thinks about the context that the building is going to be in. What part of the country is the building in? What is the site like? Is it a flat site? Is it a sloping site? Which way is south? Where's the sun going to shine in? What kind of views are there going to be? What is the budget? Who is going to be using this building? All of those things are the important factors that you consider when you're designing a building.
So your projects are influenced in large part by the site and its surroundings.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
the architecture that already exists in that location.
Yes.
I remember when I visited Arizona, I visited Taliesin West, which was a Frank Lloyd Wright building. His designs always considered surroundings. I know that he built them into walls, and he built mounds on top of them and so on. Has this type of architecture influenced your work?
Absolutely. In architectural school, we studied all of the great architects, and we actually traveled a lot, and we made what you might consider pilgrimages to the well-known architectural sites, many of which were built by Frank Lloyd Wright, and we were inspired and learned by visiting those places.
Mm-hmm. And further your training, you went to Florence, Italy for a semester.
I did, yes. Part of the Syracuse program is a study abroad in Florence, Italy, which was really an amazing experience. It was the first time I'd ever been to Europe, and it really changes your perspective on the entire world.
Now, Walter Gropius and the development of the Bauhaus in Germany was very influential up to the Nazi period. Did that influence, or does that influence your type of architecture at all?
To some degree, Walter Gropius did come to the United States, and the dean of our school, Dean Seligman, was influenced by Gropius. I believe that they worked or taught together at some point, and actually Benjamin Thompson did work with Walter Gropius in Cambridge. They had a firm called the Architects Collaborative. So definitely from a lot of different parts of my education, there was that influence of modern architecture.
So you've had lots of training, both here and abroad. You've developed a broad picture of architecture, and you've had a passion for doing it since you were a child. I'm just wondering now, is all this, you've turned all this experience and training into your own design style. What are your favorite projects, and do you have any projects that you could show us?
Yes, definitely I have some things I can show you. This is a project in Sherburne, an addition to an existing house. And what we did was, you can see the before and after picture here. On the top, we took down a large and I think very ugly garage and we replaced it with a piece that I feel is much more in keeping with the rest of the house, better proportion, and offered better spaces for the existing house, and also enhanced what was there. Here are a couple of more of the finished product.
So this is a restoration project.
An addition, and a renovation. We did work on some of the existing spaces, but this large piece is a completely new addition.
You do restoration work too?
I do, yes. I do interior renovations that don't involve any additions at all. I also do brand new houses. This is a project that I'm very proud of because these clients I've been working with for over 10 years, and I'm right now on my 5th project for these people, and it's been a very meaningful relationship for me, and I hope for them as well, that we've been able to work together on so many different things. This is their main house, which was the first project we did, which was a large addition, a smaller addition, and some other very small additions on the 2nd floor. So we did a lot of things to this house, and it was pretty complicated to be able to make the finished product look like it had always been there. The biggest issue when you're doing an addition is that you want to make sure that what you do enhances what's there, and you don't want someone to look at it and say, oh, this is the addition. That's the thing you always want to avoid. You want to be able to work with what's there and make it better when you're done with it. This was the 2nd project I did with these people, which was a pavilion that we added to an existing deck off of their pool house. And we used a heavy timber truss roof system, and we built a stone fireplace at the end, and they spend a great deal of time out there during the warmer months. We even built an outdoor television cabinet so they could watch TV out there on their big screen. The next project we did was the interior of the pool house. The pool house was actually a very old building, and we opened up the ceiling. We added the scissor trusses that you see in the pictures, and we renovated the interior. We renovated the kitchenette. The 4th project is a job on Martha's Vineyard. They purchased a piece of land there, and you can see on the left, this is a SketchUp model that we did of the house that they would someday like to build, and the barn in the back, which we call the recreation barn. And we use SketchUp models a lot because they're a very quick and efficient way of showing people what something's going to look like in 3 dimensions, because most people really can't visualize by looking at a drawing what a finished product is going to be. So it's a very handy tool to be able to show them a model, and it's much quicker than what we used to do, which is making them out of cardboard and foam core. And we don't cut ourselves anymore either, so that's a plus.
Did you do both of the house and the barn, or?
Right now we just have finished the barn.
And that's
that, yes.
That's the barn here.
Right, and the house we haven't started yet.
I see.
That's a project for the future.
I see.
This is a different project for a different client that I did in Jamaica Plain.
This is a renovation.
This was a renovation. It was a complete interior and exterior gut. And you can see on the left, the original house was covered with aluminum siding, and we really had no idea what was under that until we removed it. But when we did, we found this stunning detail that you can see on the right. Of course, it required substantial renovation. Some of it had been removed, but most of it was still intact, just in bad shape, and we had it repaired, and you can see what a huge difference that made. Here are a couple more shots. We built a little garage / shed in a similar style to the existing house, and a deck that spills out to a patio that opens to a beautiful garden. And I also did several built-ins, one of which you could see there in that photo. This is a new house that I did in Vermont. It's a vacation home, and built on a very steep slope, which we use to our advantage, and also with quite a spectacular view of Okemo Mountain, which you can see on the upper right. So of course the house was sited to take advantage of that view, and also to take advantage of the slope of the site.
How are the projects in Vermont? Are they pretty difficult to get permits and so on?
No, not at all. It's much easier to work in Vermont than it is to work in Massachusetts. Yes.
So in your firm, do you oversee a project from permits to completion?
Typically, it depends on what the client wants and what the client needs, but I recommend that the architect is involved through the construction phase, because there are always little things that come up. A contractor might misinterpret a drawing. There might be a mistake on the drawing. That's always a possibility. The client may want to make a change or have a question about something. So it's always better to have the architect involved. It really doesn't add much to the cost when you look at the big picture and compare it to the cost of ripping out something that you decided you didn't look good or was a mistake.
Materials have always interested me. If you're building something in Vermont, do you use stone or do you use wood preferably? I would imagine in California they'd use redwood. Or do you use local products basically?
Often, yes, and part of that is because of availability and cost. Obviously, things that are local are usually cheaper to get. You don't have the transportation costs. That's not always the case, but typically that is something that you consider. And also the local vernacular or the style of the architecture. If you want something that's traditional and that is contextual, you're going to use the materials that other people have used in the buildings that are near you.
Just, you know, I go to Pennsylvania and I see all these stone houses and so on. And then I come to New England where there's nothing but stone and I see all wood houses. Can you tell me why these have developed that way. Why don't we have more stonework here in New England?
I'm not sure. I think it has partly to do with the original people who settled the area. They built what they knew how to build with what they had, and I think when they got to New England they had a lot of trees, so they were clearing the land to make their farms, and they used the wood that they cleared to build their houses.
Do you select, I mean, when you start a project, you have to select the proper plumber, electrician, landscaper, the whole thing. Do you put that whole package together, and do you have certain people that you favor as far as your designs are concerned?
Again, it depends on the client. Sometimes a client will come to me and they've already got a contractor, or they have someone they like to ask to bid the project. If they ask me to recommend people, I will recommend general contractors that I've worked with that I think would be a good fit for that person. But the client makes the choice of who is going to do the work.
What do you think is the most important factors to home design? What should people really consider, or what does an architect consider to be the most important factors in home design?
Well, again, the context is very important. You want to make sure that you're going to get the right light in the right spaces. For example, if you're doing a master bedroom with a bathroom, you don't want to put the bathroom on the south side, you want to put the bedroom on the south side, because that's the spot that's going to be occupied more and have the greater benefit of that light. Things like that. It's very important to take the time and make the financial investment in the planning stage to make sure that the final product is exactly what you want, because it's much easier to erase it from a paper than it is to rip it out after it's already been built.
Did you have any other designs you wanted to show us?
Just a couple. This is a new home that I have under construction right now. In fact, I was there this morning before I came here. And I'm very excited to see it starting to take shape. And you can see again on the lower right the SketchUp model that I used in the design process, and to show the client what it was going to look like. This is a house I did for a family with a child in a wheelchair, and actually I did an addition. They had the house built on one level because of the wheelchair, and then unfortunately in the middle of the construction with the builder realized that their backyard was one level below their living level. So they had this big ramp built, part of which you can see on the left side, and what they chose to do was add an elevator. So on the right, the after picture, you notice this, what looks like a tower. That's the elevator. And we finished the basement. We closed in the interior of that little bump out in the rear. We removed the ramp. We put an accessible bathroom in the basement, and we made it into a beautiful entertaining space. And now they have all the handicapped children come, and they have parties, and they have them swim in the pool, and they all use that space, and it works out very well for them. This is a kitchen, dining, sitting area renovation that I did to a very tiny row house. The original kitchen was 7'9" wide, so it's not very functional. So we opened up walls, and we did some very detailed built-ins, and we did very careful planning, and were able to get them a space that was functional and beautiful and met all of their needs.
You did have to take down walls.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we opened up between the kitchen and the dining room, and we stole a couple of feet from the dining room, and then there was a porch, a 3-season porch that we made into a finished space, and we opened up into that, and we stole a couple feet in from there. So between all of that, we were able to get them a functional kitchen.
This idea, this concept of open spaces in houses, now you go into a house and you'll see big areas that are combining living room, dining room, kitchen, family room, playroom, whatever, and it flows together.
Yes.
So much. Is this something that is modern architecture?
Yes, absolutely. And many of my clients come to me with houses that were built in the 19th or the early 20th century, and they love the architecture, they love the charm, but they want more modern spaces. So the challenge of what I do with a renovation or an addition is how to maintain the character, but change the space to match what the client wants and how they want to use it today. And so opening it up.
That's essentially what you did here then.
Yes, definitely.
Is there anything else that you have?
No, that's all I brought with me
today.
That's all you brought with
you?
Yes.
You probably have a lot of others at home.
I do. I have a lot of other things on my website and on my Facebook page. There's a lot more information and a lot more photographs.
What is your website?
My website is www.finespaces.com.
And your email?
My email is kg@finespaces.com.
And all small letters?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Okay. And your telephone?
It's 508-653-5223.
Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your life's work with us. I think it's really neat to find out all the things that people do in Sherburne.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. And well, for the Sherburne Business Association, Dover Sherburne Cable TV, this is Dave Sorter of the Sherburne Inn saying thanks for getting to know your Sherburne business people. Until next time, good night.